There is a moment that comes to every soul, a moment when the thing you built your whole world upon suddenly disappears. The job is gone, the relationship ends, the money runs out, the dream collapses. And in that hollow, echoing silence that follows, a voice rises up from somewhere deep inside you and whispers the most terrifying question a human heart can ask. What if this is the end? What if what I had is gone forever and nothing this good will ever come again? That voice is not the voice of truth. That voice is the voice of appearances, and appearances, as Florence Scovel Shinn so powerfully taught, are the greatest liars in the universe. There is a law, not a wish, not a comfort, not a religious sentiment meant to make you feel better in hard times, but an absolute, unbreakable, cosmic law that governs all things seen and unseen. And that law declares, with the full authority of infinite intelligence behind it, there is no loss in divine mind. Not some loss, not a little loss that can be recovered from eventually. No loss, none. The word loss does not exist in the vocabulary of God. It is a word invented by human fear, sustained by human doubt, and worshipped at the altar of human limitation. But in the mind that created galaxies and grows flowers through concrete and turns winter into spring without a single moment of panic in that mind, the very concept of loss is unknown. Now, you may read those words and feel a resistance rise in you. You may think of the thing you lost, and perhaps you have lost something that shook you to your very foundation. Perhaps it was a person you loved more than you knew how to say. Perhaps it was a business you poured years of your life into. Perhaps it was your health, your reputation, your savings, or your sense of who you were. And everything in your human mind wants to argue with this law. Everything in you wants to say, but you don't understand. This was real. This loss was real. I felt it. I lived it. I am still living it. And to that, this truth does not argue back. It simply stands, immovable, the way a mountain stands when the wind argues against it. The human mind sees in pictures. It sees what was there, and it sees what is no longer there, and it calls the empty space between those two pictures loss. But divine mind does not see in pictures. It does not see beginnings and endings. It does not see what was and what is not. It sees only the eternal, unbroken, ever-flowing substance of good, and that substance cannot be depleted, cannot be stolen, cannot be destroyed, and cannot be lost. It simply moves. It changes form. It withdraws from one channel so that it may rush toward you through a greater one. What looks like loss from where you are standing is often nothing more than redirection seen from a viewpoint too small to take in the whole design. Think of water. You cannot destroy water. You can freeze it, and it becomes ice. It looks different. It feels different. It serves a different purpose, but it is still water. You can boil it, and it rises as vapor into the air, invisible now, seemingly gone, but it is still water. It will return. It always returns. The substance itself is indestructible. And so it is with every good thing that God has established in your life. The form may change, the channel may close, the outer picture may shift in ways that break your heart. But the substance of that good, the love, the abundance, the opportunity, the joy, that substance is indestructible. It has not gone. It has not vanished. It is gathering itself, finding a new form, preparing to return to you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. This is not wishful thinking. This is not the spiritual equivalent of telling yourself everything will be fine when everything is clearly not fine. This is a declaration of the nature of reality itself, the reality that exists beneath the surface of appearances, beneath the story your fear is telling you, beneath the evidence that your five senses are presenting to you as final and absolute. And in the sections that follow, we are going to walk together into the very heart of this law, because understanding it is not enough. You must feel it, you must know it, and ultimately, you must live it. The great trouble with human beings is not that they suffer loss, It is that they believe in it so completely, so thoroughly, so devotedly, that they build their entire inner world around it. The moment something disappears from the outer life, the mind rushes in like a flood and begins constructing a monument to what is gone. It rehearses the memories, it replays the moments. It measures every new day against the days that came before and finds them wanting. It sets up a permanent residence in the past and then wonders why the future never seems to arrive with anything worth celebrating. This is not grief. Grief is holy. Grief is necessary. Grief is the soul's honest response to change. This is something else entirely. This is the decision, made often without any awareness that a decision is being made, to accept loss as a final verdict on your life. Florence Scovel Shinn wrote that every man is a golden link in the chain of good. She understood something that most people spend their entire lives failing to grasp, that you are not a separate, isolated creature trying to scratch out a living in an indifferent universe. You are connected, at every moment, to an infinite source of supply that knows no exhaustion, no favoritism, and no shortage. The same mind that hung the stars in their places and set the planets in their courses and causes the tide to come in and go out with perfect, unwavering reliability, that same mind is the mind in which your good exists. And if the stars have not fallen, if the tide has not forgotten to return, if the sun has not failed to rise, then your good has not been lost. It has simply not yet appeared in the form you expect. This is where most people make the great mistake that compounds their pain. They decide not only that what they had is gone, but that because it is gone, they must now settle for less. They begin a quiet negotiation with life in which they trade their original dream for something smaller, safer, more realistic. They call this wisdom. They call it maturity. They call it learning to be grateful for what you have instead of chasing what you want. And while gratitude is one of the most powerful spiritual forces available to a human soul, there is a false version of gratitude that is really nothing more than resignation wearing a peaceful expression. True gratitude says, I am thankful for what I have, and I trust that greater good is on its way. False gratitude says, I suppose this is all there is for me, and I should make my peace with it. One opens the door, the other locks it, sits down in front of it, and calls the stillness contentment. Divine mind has no awareness of your self-imposed ceiling. It does not honor your decision to want less. It does not reward you for shrinking. It is forever pressing against every limitation you have set, forever offering more than you have allowed yourself to receive, forever preparing a table in the wilderness that you would see plainly if only you would lift your eyes from the ground where you have been searching for scraps. The universe is not a place of scarcity that occasionally, through luck or favor, produces moments of abundance. It is a place of infinite abundance that occasionally, through the interference of fear and doubt, appears scarce. The appearance is the lie. The abundance is the truth. Consider how nature itself refuses to accept the idea of permanent loss. A forest burns, and it is devastating to witness. Everything that stood tall and green and full of life is reduced to ash and silence. Any human observer looking at that scorched landscape would be forgiven for calling it a picture of complete and total loss. But beneath the surface of that ash, the seeds that the fire released are already beginning to stir. The nutrients that the fire returned to the soil are already feeding the first tender shoots pushing upward. Within a season, within a year, the forest is returning, and in many cases, returning fuller, richer, and more alive than it was before the fire came. Nature does not grieve what burned. Nature trusts the law. Nature knows that the substance of life is indestructible, and it proceeds accordingly, without hesitation, without mourning, without any negotiation with limitation. You are being asked to do the same. Not to pretend the fire did not burn, not to deny the reality of what you have walked through, but to refuse with every ounce of spiritual conviction you can summon, to let the ash be the final word. Because in divine mind, the final word is never loss. The final word is always restoration. The final word is always more. And the soul that holds on to that truth, even when everything visible seems to contradict it, is the soul that will stand one day in the middle of a life so full and so beautiful that it will look back at the burning and understand, at last, what it was always preparing the ground for. There is a story told in the ancient scriptures that has confounded the logical mind for centuries, and yet to the soul that has learned to read beneath the surface of things, it is one of the most precise and perfect illustrations of this law ever recorded. A man named Job loses everything: his wealth, his family, his health, his standing in the community. He sits in the ruins of his former life, surrounded by people who offer him explanations for his suffering, theories about what he did wrong, philosophies about why God has abandoned him. And Job, in his anguish, argues back. He demands answers. He wrestles openly and without apology with the silence of heaven. And what is remarkable about this story is not the suffering. Suffering is common enough in human experience that it requires no ancient text to document it. What is remarkable is what happens when the wrestling is done. When Job has exhausted every argument and every question and every demand, and finally falls into a stillness deeper than resignation, deeper than acceptance, deeper than anything the logical mind can manufacture, in that stillness, everything is restored. Not partially, not approximately. Everything he lost comes back to him doubled. The law does not restore halfway. It does not meet you at 70% of what you had before. When divine mind moves in restoration, it moves extravagantly, the way a river moves when the dam that was holding it back is finally removed. But notice what had to happen first. Job had to stop building his case. He had to stop presenting his evidence of loss to heaven as though God needed to be informed of the situation. He had to stop rehearsing what was gone and stand, empty-handed and open, in the presence of something so much larger than his understanding that the only possible response was awe. And in that openness, not in his arguments, not in his strategies for recovery, not in his plans to rebuild, in that raw, surrendered openness, the restoration came. This is not a detail. This is the entire mechanism of the law. You cannot receive with a closed fist. You cannot be filled when you are holding onto the shape of what used to be. The hand that clutches the empty cup so tightly that it cannot be taken away and refilled is the hand that will remain thirsty longest. This is one of the most difficult things this law asks of a human soul: to release the form while trusting the substance. To say, with genuine conviction and not merely with words, I release this. I release the shape it took. I release my attachment to the channel through which my good came to me before. I trust that the substance of this good, which cannot be destroyed and cannot be lost, is already finding a new and greater form, and I open myself completely to receive it. Most people can say those words. Very few people can mean them at the depth required for the law to move. Because releasing the form feels, to the human heart, exactly like accepting the loss. It feels like giving up. It feels like betrayal of something precious. And so people hold on not to the good itself, which cannot be held anyway, but to the memory of the form the good once took, to the picture of how things were supposed to look, to the insistence that if restoration is real, it must come through the same door it left through. But God is not limited to your preferred door. This is the truth that sets people free when they truly receive it, and it is the truth that keeps people imprisoned when they refuse it. Divine mind sees 1,000 channels where you see one. It sees 1,000 forms where you see only the one you lost. It is not confused about how to reach you. It is not searching for a way to restore what was taken. The restoration is already prepared, already moving toward you, already complete in the realm of pure spirit, and the only question is whether you will release your grip on the old form long enough to let the new one arrive. The widow in the ancient story is told to gather empty vessels, not full ones, empty ones, and pour from her small jar of oil. And as she pours, trusting a law she cannot see with her eyes, the oil does not run out. It fills every vessel she has gathered. And then it stops, not because the supply ran out, but because there were no more empty vessels left. The supply was never the limitation. The vessels were. You are the vessel. And the question that this law is always quietly asking of you is this: how much of yourself have you emptied out of fear, of doubt, of old grief, of attachment to how things used to be? How much room have you genuinely made for the new thing that is pressing against the walls of your life, waiting for an opening? Because the supply, the love, the abundance, the opportunity, the joy, the restoration, the supply is not the problem. The supply is infinite. It is inexhaustible. It has not diminished by a single drop because of what you have been through. It has, if anything, been building pressure behind the dam of your unbelief, waiting for the moment you open fully enough to let it through. And here is what makes this law so extraordinary. So unlike anything the human mind would design if left to its own devices, it does not punish you for the time you spent in doubt. It does not deduct from your restoration the months or years you spent believing in loss. It does not say, you should have trusted sooner, and so you will receive less. Divine mind holds no record of your fear. It carries no memory of your resistance. The moment you turn, the very moment, not the day after, not when you have sufficiently proven your faith, the moment you genuinely turn and open and trust, the supply begins to move, instantly, completely, without condition. This is not the law of karma, which measures and balances. This is the law of grace, which gives not according to what you have earned, but according to what you are willing to receive. There is something that happens to a person who has carried the weight of loss for a long time, something subtle, something that creeps in so quietly that most people never notice it happening until it has already reshaped the entire landscape of their inner world. They begin to identify with the loss. It becomes not something that happened to them, but something that defines them. The story of what was taken becomes the story of who they are. And this is perhaps the most dangerous thing that loss can do to a human soul, not the pain it causes, which is real and must be honored, but the identity it constructs, which is false and must be dismantled. Because the moment you become the person who lost everything, you have handed the keys of your future to your past, and you have done it so completely, so unconsciously, that you do not even realize the door is locked from the inside. Florence Scovel Shinn understood that words are not merely sounds. They are not simply the noise the human mouth makes when the brain wants to communicate. Words are forces. They are spiritual tools of the highest order, capable of building or destroying, opening or closing, calling forth or pushing away. She taught that your word is your wand, and she meant this with the full weight of absolute law behind it. Every word you speak about your loss is a declaration to the universe about what you expect your life to contain. Every time you tell the story of what was taken from you, you are rehearsing a script that the infinite creative power of divine mind will work to make true in your outer experience. Not because God is punishing you for your negative speech, not because the universe is unkind, but because the law is impersonal and precise, the way gravity is impersonal and precise. It does not ask your permission. It does not evaluate your intentions. It simply responds to what you give it, and it gives you back more of the same. This means that the words you are speaking right now about your life are among the most important things happening in your world. Not the economy, not the circumstances, not the behavior of other people, not the opportunities that seem present or absent. Your words, your inner declarations. The story you tell yourself at 3 a.m. when the silence is loud and the fear is close and the evidence of loss feels overwhelming and absolute, that story is not a description of your reality. That story is a prescription for your reality. And if the story you are telling is a story of permanent loss, of doors forever closed, of good that came once and will not come again, then you are not reporting the news. You are writing it. You are the author of that outcome. And you have the power, right now, in this moment, to put down that pen and pick up another one. This is not about pretending. It is not about manufacturing a false cheerfulness that sits on top of genuine pain like a coat of bright paint over a cracked wall. The law does not ask you to lie to yourself. It does not require you to deny what hurts or to perform a happiness you do not feel. What it asks is something far more precise and far more powerful than that. It asks you to make a distinction, a clear, conscious, deliberate distinction between what is true in the realm of appearances and what is true in the realm of divine mind. In the realm of appearances, something is gone. That is real. That is acknowledged. That is not argued with. But in the realm of divine mind, the substance of that good is indestructible. The restoration is already prepared, and the law that governs all things is already working on your behalf. Both of these things are simultaneously true, and the question is not which one is real. The question is which one you are going to give your attention, your words, and your faith to, because whichever one you choose will become the dominant force shaping your experience. The great mystics and teachers who have walked this earth in every age and tradition have always pointed to the same invisible turning point in a human life, the moment when a person stops reacting to the outer world and begins to deliberately create from the inner one. It is the moment when prayer stops being a plea and becomes a declaration, when faith stops being a feeling and becomes a decision, when the soul stops asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and begins to ask, "What is this preparing me for?" That shift, that single seismic shift in the orientation of the soul, is the moment the tide turns, not the moment the outer circumstances change. Not the moment the new job appears, or the relationship is healed, or the money comes in. The tide turns in the invisible world first, and the outer world follows, always, with the reliability of natural law, with the certainty of the sunrise. And so the practical work of this law is not as complicated as the mind wants to make it. The mind loves complexity because complexity gives it something to do. And a busy mind feels like a productive mind, even when it is busy building walls instead of doors. But the actual work is simple, though it is not easy. It is the daily, sometimes hourly, sometimes moment-by-moment practice of catching the thought that says, "This is gone forever," and replacing it with the thought that says, "Divine Mind knows where my good is, and Divine Mind is bringing it to me now." It is the practice of speaking about your life, not as it appears to be, but as you know, by spiritual law, it truly is. It is the practice of giving thanks, real, felt, genuine thanks for the restoration before it is visible. Because the soul that can thank God for the answer before the answer arrives has understood something profound about the nature of faith and the mechanics of the law. It is the practice of watching your words the way a careful gardener watches the soil, knowing that every seed planted, whether of fear or of faith, will grow. Knowing that the harvest you walk into tomorrow is being planted by the words you are speaking today, and choosing, with full awareness and full authority, to plant only what you want to see in bloom. And so we arrive at the place where every great spiritual truth must eventually arrive not at a concept to be admired from a distance, not at a philosophy to be debated in comfortable rooms, but at a life to be lived. Because a law that is only understood intellectually is like a seed that is only admired in the hand. It has all the potential in the world, and it is producing absolutely nothing. The truth we have walked through together in these pages is not meant to live in your mind. It is meant to move through your mind and settle into your bones, into the deepest, quietest place in you, where decisions are not made with logic, but with the full, embodied knowing of a soul that has touched something real and will never be the same because of it. That is where this law must take root. And when it does, when it truly does, the way you walk through the world will never look the same again. You will begin to notice something extraordinary happening. The very losses that once felt like endings will begin to reveal themselves as the most precise and purposeful redirections your life has ever taken. The door that closed and broke your heart will show itself to have been the only thing standing between you and the corridor that leads to everything you were actually made for. The relationship that ended will reveal itself to have been a classroom in which you learned things about love and about yourself that you could not have learned any other way, and whose graduation, painful as it was the necessary condition for the love that was waiting for you to finally find its way in. The business that failed will show itself to have been the exact experience that built the precise combination of wisdom, resilience, and insight that the greater work of your life required. This is not a consolation prize. This is not God apologizing for the hard times by showing you a silver lining. This is the actual architecture of a life being guided by a mind so much larger than the human one that what looks like demolition from inside the story looks, from the vantage point of the whole story, exactly like construction. But you must live long enough in the truth to see it. You must hold on through the period of appearances, and there will be a period of appearances, there always is, when everything visible still looks like loss, when the outer circumstances have not yet caught up with the inner shift you have made, when the law is working in the invisible and has not yet broken through to the visible. This is the testing ground of faith, and it is where most people turn back, not because they stop believing entirely, but because they believe just enough to start and not quite enough to finish. They make the declaration, they shift the words, they begin to open the hand, and then 3 days pass, or 3 weeks, or 3 months, and the outer world has not visibly changed, and the fear rushes back in with fresh evidence and renewed urgency, and they conclude that the law did not work for them. But the law was working. It is always working. The invisible always precedes the visible. The seed is always underground before it is ever above ground. And the farmer who digs up the seed every 3 days to check whether it is growing will never see the harvest. This is why Shinn spoke so consistently about the importance of the spoken word as a daily practice, not a one-time declaration made in a moment of inspiration and then abandoned when inspiration fades, but a steady, consistent, unwavering discipline of speaking truth into the atmosphere of your own life, regardless of what the atmosphere appears to contain. Infinite Spirit, open the way. There is no loss in divine mind. My good cannot be taken from me. It can only be transformed and returned to me in greater measure. These are not affirmations in the shallow sense of the word. They are not cheerful sentences designed to trick the brain into feeling better. They are precise spiritual instruments, tuned to the frequency of divine law, and every time you speak them with genuine conviction, you are doing something real in the invisible world. You are clearing the channel. You are removing the obstruction of fear. You are opening the vessel wider. You are, quite literally, calling your good home, and your good will come home. This is not hope. This is not optimism. This is not the wishful thinking of a soul that refuses to face reality. This is the declaration of an absolute law, spoken by every teacher of truth who has ever stood before a human audience and dared to say what the deepest part of every human heart already knows, that we live in a universe of infinite good, governed by a mind that knows no lack, sustained by a love that knows no favorites and no endings, and that every soul who aligns with that truth, who speaks it, who lives it, who refuses to let appearances have the final word, that soul will see, in its own life and in its own time, the most breathtaking reversals, the most stunning restorations, the most beautiful proofs that the law is real, and that it works for everyone without exception. So let this be the word you carry out of this place and into the ordinary, extraordinary hours of your daily life. Let it be the word you speak when the fear comes, as it will come. Let it be the word you return to when the appearances press in, as they will press in. Let it be the anchor that holds you steady in the storm and the compass that orients you when you have lost your sense of direction. There is no loss in divine mind. Not your loss, not the loss of the thing you loved most, not the loss that happened so long ago you have almost made peace with it, and not the loss that happened so recently the wound is still open and raw. None of it. Not one particle of your good has been permanently removed from the universe. It has shifted form, it has changed channel, it has gone underground to gather force. And it is coming back to you, fuller, richer, more perfectly suited to who you have become through the very experience of losing it than it ever could have been in its original form. This is the law. This is the truth. And the truth, when you finally let it all the way in, does not just comfort you. It transforms you. It stands you upright. It puts fire back in your eyes, and direction back in your steps, and a quality of expectation in your soul that the world can feel when you walk into a room. Because you are no longer a person waiting to see if good will find you. You are a person who knows, with the calm, unshakable certainty of someone who has looked the law in the face and recognized it, that the good is already on its way, that the door is already opening, that the restoration is already written, and that in the mind of God, which is the only mind there truly is, there never was, and there never will be, any such thing as loss.